To do is the first thing I really want to do is I need to share this out to a couple of groups here. The Chucktown Wind Report for the local beat here. It's my wind group. If you haven't checked it out, it is Chucktown Wind Report on Facebook, and you can go there and request to be added and become part of the wind community for the greater Charleston area. We also talk about wind and weather all around the southeast region in the country for that matter. I'll go ahead and get these shared out to a couple of groups. We'll go up to all the way up to Outer Banks. We'll do OBX kiteboarding just for the kiteboarders up there. Of course, it's pretty chilly out there, so we've had some pretty interesting weather the last 7 days. We're at about 44 degrees average, which is the second lowest temperature, max temperature for a 7-day period in the 9 decades of recording. So we've had a pretty cold spat going on. I'm going to go ahead and bring in some satellite imagery here. Now this is, let's keep going. So I'm going on infrared imagery here. Let's check out some of the temperatures over the area right now. And we're sitting right at freezing, right below freezing, about 28 degrees to 30 degrees along the coastal empire, along the Charleston area and all the way up and down the coastline. So we're well below the freezing limit at this point. As we were last night at this time, we got down to about 19 degrees this morning, tied the record at the Charleston International Airport. We also got a reading at Folly Beach for 19 degrees as well. Wind chills this morning dropped down to near 0 degrees at Folly Beach because the winds were gusting up near 30 miles per hour. So your wind chill factored in with that brings the temperature, makes it feel a lot lower than what it really is. So when you have 20 degrees with 20 knot winds gusting to 30, it's going to feel a lot less. So we had single-digit wind chills for the most part this morning, widely across the area, anywhere from 1 degree up to 15 degrees. So cold day ahead. This cold pattern that we've had settling into the southeast region has really sort of sacked the area, and it's getting set up for a cold weather pattern to allow for wintry precipitation. That's what we're looking at starting tomorrow morning. So all the energy right now is coming across the Texas area down into the Gulf. We have this area of moisture here, this area of energy that's heading over towards the Florida area, and this is where it's all going to begin right here, just to the west, right between Florida and the Bahamas, just to the west of the Bahamas, where we're going to see remnants of an old front with a central low pressure join with this batch of energy and become a large surface low and start pushing to the north. As it pushes north, it's going to become extratropical, but not before pushing moisture up into the southeast region and wrapping around the low into the coastline, where we're going to see wintry precipitation in the form of freezing rain, sleet, and snow, and all with accumulation. So looking at a mixed bag of precipitation for tomorrow, pretty much all starting in the morning, lasting all day and into the night, hopefully tapering off by midnight tomorrow night. But it's going to be rather nasty tomorrow afternoon with wintry weather. We do definitely have the setup. The air temperatures are supposed to hover right around freezing, if not just below, for most of the day tomorrow. If you get a lot of snow in the air, then that brings the temperature down even more. So, we're looking at total saturation of the atmosphere with cold air. Now, the big question is going to be how close this low comes to the coastline, because then that's when we start to get into ice and sleet, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the model reference. Let me move this off the screen here. Now this is the NAM 3K. In fact, I'm going to back up just a second. I want to run the GFS model. This is one, the GFS and the Euro are what the National Weather Service have been sort of leaning on for a good bit. And the reason being is because the NAM 3 and some of the higher resolution models were trying to get a bead on a larger scale system, which they're not completely made for. And so that was producing a lot of exaggerated readings over the area, so we didn't want to put those out there. The National Weather Service went a little bit more modest and conservative, but now we're starting to add a little bit of accumulation to what the forecast has originally said. So with that said, let me go ahead and share this out one more time. I forgot to put that on my page, actually. Let me share it to myself. And I think Carolina Weather Group has this also feeding live as well, so we'll let that keep going, and hopefully folks along the North Carolina area can join in as well. This is mainly for the South Carolina, North Carolina coastal areas and coastal plain, and into the central areas as well, because some of the snow may reach some of the central locales in both South Carolina and North Carolina. Anyways, here's the GFS. Now this is from the 6 p.m. model run, and as we go into time, this is 6 hours out, we see that energy starting to kind of pulse up from the Gulf of Mexico. The widespread sort of swath of moisture is a little bit exaggerated to the west, but we see the short wave and this low pressure start to lift up from the south, up from the Bahamas overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. And this is where things get really tricky because it's going to happen pretty fast. This freezing rain that's going to occur down into northern Florida across the Pensacola area and all the way over to Jacksonville. We'll see some mixing and sleet mixed in with that as well on the north side, because to the north of that is a large ridge of high pressure that is driving these northerly winds, these cold temperatures down into the southeast. And so what you have is you have an overriding of warmer moisture into this colder air, and then what that does is produce this wintry precipitation. The big question is going to be, will the freezing column to the north be enough to keep everything pretty much on the ice to snow side? We think we're going to have more snow than anything else, but as we go forward in time, we see that more snow is populated with the GFS. You see these pinks are representing some of the frozen precipitation, sleet, maybe freezing rain. And as we go up the coast in time, this is into tomorrow evening, we see the snow persisting along the coastline all the way down through the Georgia, the southeast Georgia, and the coastal empire, the Carolinas, all the way up, all the way into January 4th, which is Thursday morning. And we see OBX really getting hammered. As this heads up towards northeast, it's really going to bomb out up there. Bomb out meaning, there's sort of a misrepresentation of that word bombing out. It's called bombing out from bombogenesis. It's a term in meteorology where a system kind of explodes in depth and character, and it really gets the winds driving, the gradient increases, the snowfall amounts really increase, and the northeast is looking for a walloping up in that area, maybe as much as a foot to 15 inches of snow or more. But for the southeast, this is where things get tricky. Now, if we look at the Euro, that's the GFS. Remember now, the GFS and the Euro are the two main players that were being looked at for this. And let me go over to the Euro and let you see what it is producing. Now, it's showing the same thing. We see this freezing rain working up across northern Florida into Georgia and up into South Carolina. By Wednesday afternoon, we start to see that mix really working in and changing over to snow as we go on through the day. So the Euro and the GFS both have snow really kind of ramping up in the afternoon. So as we go into time into tomorrow night, this is when things taper off and the system leaves us and heads up to the northeast, and then we dry out by Thursday. Temperatures are supposed to be in the low 40s by Thursday, so we could see some thawing, but with as much as that is expected to fall, it may keep the roads slick through tomorrow night. So for a few days to come, we may have those overnight freezing temperatures keep this around for a little bit longer than we had hoped for. If we look back at the NAM, the North American model, if we run this one forward, we can see sort of the same situation with some of this blotchy freezing rain and sleet working its way up along the coastline. And this one is really thick with the ice. It may be exaggerated, so I don't want to put too much emphasis on this model, but you can see how nasty the situation could get with this particular model. I don't think it's going to occur like this. I think we're going to have a little bit more snow than we would sleet, but I think we're going to see all three types of precipitation, maybe even a little bit of grapple mixed in. Grapple is sort of a flaky white ice core. It's like sleet with a little bit of crystals wrapped around it. It looks almost like snow, but it drops like an ice pellet. So it's been kind of refrozen. And when we talk about freezing rain and sleet along the coastline, we have to look at what's called the warm nose. And this is what drives this. Let me go over to a different product here to show. I think this is the one right here. I had it up earlier on a different page, but this will work. This represents this warm air layer that exists. Sometimes when these low pressures are off the coastline, we see this wedge working off the ocean where when the warmer sea surface temperatures are over the Gulf Stream, they work their way into the coast, and so what you have is a warm layer kind of jutting in the atmosphere. And what that does is the precipitation that falls as snow melts as it goes through it and then refreezes down below it, or it just freezes down at the surface where it's cold enough and the temperatures are freezing. So we're looking at freezing rain to start, changing over to sleet, and then as this warm nose backs out, as the system heads up, parallels our coastline, then we see that warm nose backing away from the coastline. We see mostly all snow from that point on, but how much ice is going to fall has yet to be determined. The closer that the system comes to the coastline, the more chance that we'll have ice along the immediate coast, the more chance for snow to push further inland. So you can see how far inland the NAM brings the snows into central North Carolina and South Carolina. So that's the NAM being a little bit more icy. We have, this is the HER 3 kilometer. This is a high resolution preset model going out for 18 hours from now, and you can see it creeping up. All the models are pretty much in agreement for this northern Florida all the way up through southeast Georgia, swath of freezing rain and sleet. as it gets into South Carolina, we start to see that changeover, and we see that pink line holding along the coast through the morning hours. It doesn't go out any further than this. This is as far as this model goes out, is 18 hours. So we'll have a better run in the morning of how the whole day is going to go through as far as precipitation goes. But this one's pretty good. This one gives you an idea of what time to expect it starting tomorrow morning. This one brings it in a little bit later in the morning, towards late morning to midday. But the GFS and the Euro kind of bring it in a little bit earlier, so that's why there's some caution saying that this could start between 7 and 9 o'clock a.m. That's not without air. That could very well happen. We could see this progress a little bit faster. We're going to have overcast skies right before sunrise, and then the moisture is going to start working up into the area pretty quickly, and then it's going to get nasty from that point on. So we want to be very careful. If you have anywhere to go, I would recommend not going anywhere tomorrow. Just try to plan on not going anywhere tomorrow all day. But if you have to go anywhere at all, do it early and sit tight. Another issue is going to be bridges. I know there's going to be a lot of questions about bridges and road closures and all that kind of thing. You'll have to be checking SCDOT. Live 5 News has some great feed. News 2 with Rob Fowler. He's a good source of information for all kinds of stuff. He posts that regularly. All the news stations post real regular things. The government closures, school closures. I think most of those are closed tomorrow anyways. But that's sort of the idea. Now, we talked about that warm nose. Here's why. We have this cool body of shelf water along the coastline. This water right now is about 45 to 46 degrees. It's really cooled down with these air temperatures. And if you did the polar plunge this past Monday for New Year's Day, you would have felt that. So yesterday, as a matter of fact. But offshore is the Gulf Stream. So when you have low pressure spinning counterclockwise, moving up the Gulf Stream, it pushes that warm layer into the coastline. And that's sort of what I was talking about with that warm nose that produces that wedge, that warm wedge that we get sometimes. Whoops, there it is right there, where you have this type of precipitation to occur. That is pretty significant change in sea surface temperatures. If the water were warm all the way to the coast, we'd have more of a warm nose, but we have this really cool shelf water sort of event going on along the immediate coast, which may stave off some of that extra ice that we would have normally seen. So here again is that warm nose I was talking about with sleet and freezing rain. Wind chills. We also have to worry about wind chills, and this is the chart for it. It's a very exact thing. You have wind and temperature, and it shows what those winds are going to be. We are expecting moderate winds tomorrow, starting out north to north-northeast, and then backing north to north-northwest. And as the winds back from those directions, they'll start to increase in speeds up towards 20 to 25 knots. We think that some of these open locales could have wind chills down in the single digits again. So you're looking at kind of a windy day, and if you have ice accumulating on trees and power lines, and then you add some moderate to somewhat strong winds to that motion can break branches and maybe even take down some power lines. Just the weight of the ice itself, if we get over 1/10 of an inch, could do that itself, even without the motion of going back and forth in the wind. So definitely something to watch there as we head into tomorrow. Always keep those pipes dripping. If you have exposed lines outside, make sure you keep those things going. A lot of folks have underground pipes. They don't have to worry as much, but it's still a good idea to drip them just a little bit. Bring your plants in, pets, anything that could be damaged outside or in danger of hypothermia. If you have pets, even yourselves, don't spend too much time outside because it's going to be pretty cold for most of the day. Now, we are under winter storm warning as of right now, and I'll go ahead and go to National Weather Service Charleston. And right now, all the coast of South Carolina is under winter storm warning, which means we are going to be seeing conditions in the next 12 to 24 hours. We will be seeing the conditions. It's pretty much imminent at this point. We're pretty sure it's going to happen. The amounts are going to vary. Right now, the winter weather chart from the Weather Service is showing the official forecast range of about 1 to 2 inches for the Charleston area. We'll blow that up a little bit. So we have 1 to 2 inches for the Charleston area, 2 to 3 back in Summerville. This could easily increase based on some of the model readings I've been seeing lately, especially looking at this Euro. If I can go back to that one, if I can find it, there it is right there. With the Euro back here to 36 hours, it looks like that's pretty significant snowfall for this area. So we may see these numbers come up just a little bit. It's been sort of toggling between 1 and 3, so we could get up to 3, maybe even 4 inches along the immediate coastline. It looks like the immediate coastline is going to get more than inland, so we got to keep that in mind as well. Now we go to ice. We have to look at the ice accumulation forecast, and the ice accumulation right now is expected to be anywhere from 4/100ths to 1/10 of an inch. It doesn't seem like much, but that adds up pretty quickly when you get onto tree limbs and power lines. if we get anywhere over 1/10 of an inch, we could be talking a little bit more of a treacherous situation. So we'll have to be monitoring this very closely. Right now, these are preliminary. This is official forecast, preliminary numbers. We'll know a little bit more tomorrow as the system comes together and we see the moisture profile and see how much we have coming our way to add to this. I think, if anything, we're not going to be taking away from these numbers. We're going to be adding to them as time goes on. So, I wouldn't say we're going to have 6 to 8 inches of snow, but if it happened, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying it will, but that is definitely a possibility. If we go up to Wilmington, we have the same all the way up from South Carolina, North Carolina coast. The Wilmington office has a winter storm warning as well. We'll look at their winter weather maps. Snowfall amounts up to 3 inches along the immediate coast, 2 to 3 inches, and all the way inland to St. Paul's, Lumberton, Dillon, Bennettsville. All these areas are all susceptible to seeing 2 to 3 inches and then tapering off as you head inland. If we look at the, let me try to find the ice, here we go, ice forecast. Pretty much the same thing, close to Charleston, a little bit less. As you head further north, you have a little bit less of that warm nose effect heading up that way. So we're saying 2 100ths to 5 100ths, not quite as much as Charleston. Head up to Newport and Morehead City for the Nags Head and Outer Banks area, and we see pretty much a little bit more snow. I mean, as this thing goes further north, it's going to bomb out a little bit more. It's going to provide a little bit more moisture as it heads up. So we're looking at 5 inches inland, just inside of Pimlico Sound, and on the outside, these numbers could all come up as well as we head east along to the Outer Banks. So these are just sort of, these are the forecasts for right now for snowfall amounts. The ice amounts are going to vary, as I said, anywhere from 2 100ths to 1/10 of an inch, maybe a little bit more than that. So that's definitely something to look about. We head a little bit inland on North Carolina to Raleigh, North Carolina. We see snow, winter weather advisories all the way inland towards just outside of Raleigh. And if we look at the snowfall amounts there, a little bit less, just a dusting as you head further inland of North Carolina. And this goes all the way down into Columbia, South Carolina as well, and I'll pull that up. For those folks that live in Orangeburg and Columbia, here's an idea of what you may see. It doesn't look like it's going to quite reach there. You may get a few flurries in Columbia, maybe a little dusting if it reaches in that far, but most of the snow is going to be more to the east, especially east of I-95. We're going to see the highest amounts, especially over Charleston. So with that said, I think that covers a lot of the maps. I want to go ahead and look at some of the questions that you may have. I know that there's going to be questions about the roadways. This is a great tool to use right here. This is SCDOT 511sc.org. This website is right here in the top left corner. You can see it right here in the URL. This provides cameras on the major interstates and highways. You can see what's going on. You can see that there's an incident right now at I-526, so it's pretty decent with live information. And you can always check the local news outlets as well to find out if there's any updated road closures that may not appear on this map. But you can get webcams from this as well. And there's webcams all over Charleston. You can kind of get an idea. If you think the Ravenel Bridge is closed, which that's usually the first thing that goes, because of the cable stays that sort of stretch out overhead. We've seen it before where freezing rain and ice that gets stuck to these cable stays, even if it snows, it will stick. And then when it starts to thaw, it falls off in these long sheets, and it fell down onto traffic a few years back. So we have to avoid that. So the Ravenel Bridge is probably going to be the first to close that we usually see, then followed by the Don Holt Bridge, and then we'll see Ben Sawyer Bridge closing, the overpasses, Wapoo Bridge at West Ashley, those type places. I can't give you an exact time. I don't know what the SCDOT has on their minds or if they have any planned closures, but just know that the bridges usually start following in succession. Once the Ravenel closed, then you see the Don Holtz, then you see all the causeways, like the All Palms Connector, Ben Sawyer Boulevard Causeway, all the way out to the Ben Sawyer Bridge. Even extending back over to Cosgrove Avenue in North Charleston area, heading over to West Ashley. There's all kinds of bridges out there that are going to be closing down, I'm sure. So if you don't have to go anywhere tomorrow, I recommend don't drive around anywhere, because the road treatment with salt and brine is not going to be all over Charleston. It's going to be mainly restricted to bridges, from what I understand, and important roadways that EM crews can get through in order to help folks. So I don't think it's going to be open to regular traffic. So let's see. Let's go ahead and take some questions. I know I just did a little stint on that. I definitely want to address some questions here, see if you have anything. I want to go ahead and get some of that. Okay. Lauren DeLuca, Shea, thanks for the update. Happy New Year to you and your family. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that. Old friend of mine from long time back. Her and her brother Pete, good friends of mine. And Happy New Year to you too. In fact, Happy New Year to everyone here. And we're starting out the new year with a winter storm, so that's pretty interesting. Tommy Bowles, hey Tommy, how you doing? I haven't talked to you in a long time. Thanks for coming on and saying hello. Pretty much, if you can stay home, do so. Amanda Panda Bercudo says that, and that is exactly right. That is great. That's a great point. Great thing to say. Try not to plan on going anywhere. Hunker down if you've got all your groceries you need. Go ahead and just hang out and enjoy it. Easy question. What time? Right, comes from Brent Homan. Easy question. What time should I wake up to enjoy the storm? Well, Brent, I don't think it's going to start off exactly right at sunrise. I'd be surprised if we saw some of that freezing rain moving into the area by then. But I would certainly think by anywhere between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, we may start to see some of this freezing precip reach the area. Maybe light to maybe a light drizzle. But as the morning wears on, we're going to see that potential increase. The moisture profile is going to increase. We're going to start seeing sleet falling, and then we're going to start seeing flakes mixed in with that as we go into the afternoon. That's when things really crank up past midday all the way to late afternoon. So we're going to have about a 4 or 5 hour heavy period there that's going to drop the bulk of the accumulation. And when we get to the evening hours and into the night, things start to taper off. So it's sort of a real big push into the afternoon tomorrow, which is another unusual thing for Charleston is to get a full-on winter storm in the middle of the day. Usually they're overnight, and then we have thawing temperatures the next day. But this is going to be a daytime storm. So I'd say after you wake up sometime tomorrow morning, I wouldn't be in a particular hurry because the real stuff isn't going to really start showing up, I think, until late morning into early afternoon. Leslie Cowell says, still better than hurricanes. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Leslie. I would take a winter storm over a hurricane in a heartbeat. Much less damage, even though it can be very damaging and crippling for a city. It's not nearly as damaging as a hurricane. So I'll take this kind of forecasting over that almost any day if we're getting a direct hit. I don't want anybody to get a direct hit. Chris Stubbs, is your speaker on near your mic? You've got some reverb coming through the speakers. Okay, that's a good point. Let me turn the volume all the way down here. Hopefully I've got that resolved. Let me turn the speakers all the way off. Appreciate the heads up though, Chris. Let me know in another comment if it's gotten better or not. I only have a single mic with no other speakers turned on, so that reverb should be gone. But appreciate that feedback. I was having some technical difficulties earlier. I had to get panned out. I may have to tune that after I get off of this live cast for the next one that I do. Let's see here. Amanda Panda Bercudo, how much snowfall accumulation can Somerville, Knightsville area, and do you expect it will stick? And the answer is yes. I think it will stick because the ground is definitely going to be cold enough, especially after tonight as we drop back down into the low 20s. We are going to have cold enough ground for it to stick tomorrow. And even if it doesn't stick at first, usually when you get a quarter of an inch, when you start getting a little bit of accumulation of ice and snow, that cools the ground enough for it to stick anyway. So if you keep adding to it, it's going to be enough at some point. Let me go back to the Weather Service Charleston to show you the ice amount is 4/100ths of an inch to 1/10 of an inch. This is as of 4:06 p.m., so these maps may be updated tonight to show a little bit more than that. But we go back to the snowfall, what you were asking about, and this is 2 inches. We saw, let me make sure that's right here. I have the range. Let me get the range again. 2 to 3 inches. So, 2 to 3 inches of snow for the Somerville area, if that answers your question. I think these numbers may come up just a little bit by another inch widely throughout the entire Charleston area overnight tonight, but we'll have to wait and see what the Weather Service says about that. I only want to use official information for relaying this forecast, because if you start trying to go out on your own and saying it's going to be 6 inches, you may be misleading, and this kind of event is not the time to do that. So, I'm going to stick with this. I think 2 to 3 inches is a very good call. Could we get more? Sure. Could we get it 2 to 3 more inches? Sure. But this is the one we'll stick with for now. Von Regan. Thanks, Von, for coming on. He says, my question, are you ready to set up dehus and fans? Dehumidifiers and fans. Okay, that word kind of got me there. Yeah, sure. I don't think so, Von, but appreciate you keeping me in on that. I get it. It's an inside joke between me and him. But yeah, that's Happy New Year to you too, buddy. Thanks for coming in tonight. Brent, perfect. Thank you. Very welcome. Good deal. James Caudill says, Yo, Shea, what do you think about how we'll roll into Thursday for Charleston? Well, that was what I was mentioned something about that earlier, about this precipitation kind of sticking around for a few days, because not precipitation out of the air, but slick roads and wet ground because it's going to be freezing tomorrow, and then it's going to freeze again tomorrow night. So whatever falls tomorrow will stay into Thursday morning, which means Thursday morning will probably be pretty treacherous on the roads once again with everything sticking around. And then we get into the low 40s for highs on Thursday. That'll help some of the thawing. It'll turn it kind of slushy. But then Thursday night it freezes again, so then you have another slick. So I think this could be a several day. In fact, Carl Barnes of the Weather Service mentioned something about that in the Post and Courier article I read earlier, that this could be sticking around for a few days. We may not be rid of all the iciness for a few days, just based on the idea that the nighttime overnight lows will be in the freezing area. So whatever's there will still freeze and be there. I would hope that by maybe Friday or Saturday that the roads will be at least clear enough to drive, but you may see some patchy ice and things like that when you wake up each morning all the way through Saturday, and maybe Sunday it starts to warm up quite a bit. I think we're going to be completely thawed out by Sunday and Monday as temperatures go up into the upper 40s and into the 50s. So hopefully that helps you out. Benjamin Allen, do you want to build a snowman? Do you want to come out and play? Yeah, that's a good one from Frozen. Appreciate that. Yep, I get that. I get it. I got kids, so I know exactly what you're talking about. All right, Charlotte Salisbury. Thank you, Shea. You're very welcome, Charlotte. Thanks for coming on. I see Arthur Doopy's on. Buffy Harris Mack is on. Amanda Panda. Great. Thanks. The kids are thrilled. Mine are too. They're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to them seeing their real first snowfall here in Charleston. They've seen a little bit here and there, some flurries, but nothing like what we have lined up for tomorrow. Let me go back and look for any other questions that are in this particular live feed. Make sure I'm not missing anybody. They're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to them seeing their real first snowfall here in Charleston. They've seen a little bit here and there. And let's see. I think we've got pretty much all of them. If I missed your question, then I do apologize. If you have any other, go ahead. I might be coming on tomorrow morning again live to talk about what's going on with radar and see what kind of precipitation is moving into the area. We'll go back here, take a look at this map again. And this is the infrared satellite imagery showing the moisture moving across the Gulf and the low starting to slowly kind of come together right here just off the Bahamas. This is where it's all going to originate from, is right down here. As this energy sweeps over across the Gulf and joins this, all of it's going to lift to the north around a ridge that's way out here in the Atlantic. This ridge is going to lift this system up, and it's going to pull it straight north and then off to the east of the Outer Banks. So that's kind of the gist of it there. We go back to the model again on the GFS. We see what's going on overnight tonight. We see that low lifting up. How close it comes to the coast once again will determine how much ice we get. The closer it comes to the coast, the more ice. The further off the coast it stays, the more snow. So that tends to be a very problematic thing for our coastline with the warm nose, and we talked about that earlier. Here's the sleet profile again as we see that warm air wedge that is so common along the Carolinas during these events. How much of this wedge that pulls into the coastline is going to determine how much sleet, ice, or even grapple will fall. And then as the system moves up to the north, as it goes north up to this point where the low is directly parallel to maybe southeastern North Carolina, everything along that backside pretty much switches over to snow because you have this northerly flow to northwest flow behind it that is cold from sky to ground. It's a frozen column all the way up and down, and it allows for only snow to fall along that layer. So, or from the height down, from the cloud base all the way down, there's no warm layer anymore, and it's all snow. So that's what I'm thinking. As sort of a wrap to this video, I'm going to say that we start out with some freezing rain, some patchy freezing rain, some sleet in the morning, and then that's going to worsen. We'll see the pellets coming down a little bit harder, freezing rain. We'll see icicles starting to form, and then we'll see it starting to change over to snow. We'll see some flakes mixing in from time to time in the morning, but becoming thicker and thicker as the afternoon goes on, where we get peaked out. Sometime mid-afternoon, we'll see the heaviest of the snowfall, with maybe still a little bit of sleet mixed in. And then as the storm moves off to the northeast, we'll see the snow only kind of lasting through the evening and then tapering off through tomorrow night. So that's kind of my take on it, how the progression of it will be because of the whole system moving up the coastline thing. But we'll see what happens. So I think that's going to do it for this live feed. I think I've been on for about 40 minutes or so. I don't want to stay up too late. because I've got some things to look over before I go to bed tonight. And I may be up late. This may be a late night thing to me as well. Brent Homan says, as a photog, I'll be in and out of CBD. If you have any requests or questions on conditions, sure thing, Brent. I appreciate that. Any pictures are going to be great. So just be careful doing it. If the ground's icy, I don't want you falling and breaking anything. But Sarah Bartlett does ask, Shea, what's your definition of sleet versus freezing rain? Freezing rain is precip. And let me pull this up here. See if I can find it. I had this earlier, and I don't know what I did with it. There it is. Okay, cool. So, the difference between freezing rain and sleet is freezing rain is snow that falls from the sky and melts through a warm layer and stays melted all the way down until it hits the ground where the surface is at freezing or below. And that's where you get freezing rain. That's what gives everything a glaze. Freezing rain is pretty dangerous because it sticks and then it freezes on top of everything and it weighs things down. And the freezing rain is what is the worst for like tree limbs and power lines because that's what gives it more weight. The thicker the glaze, the more weight. Sleet is basically ice pellets. The snow falls, melts through the layer, and refreezes again as it falls to the ground as an immediate frozen layer is right below that warm nose, and then it just falls as a frozen pellet. So that sleet adds up, and it can be a little bit wet around the edges, so that makes it also dangerous because if you get freezing rain then sleet, then you get a kind of a sticky mess of all of it that just sort of creates a rough glaze over everything. So I'm hoping we won't get too much of that and we stick more with the snow. The more snow, the better, because the snow is not going to weigh down things as much. It's going to be a little bit fluffier, lighter. It doesn't have as much glazing feature to it. So, and we tend to get wet snow here in the southeast, so it won't be quite like what you would see out west, but think what was it, 2010, we saw a little bit of a snowstorm for about 4 to 6 inches that had some pretty large flakes. So usually the temperature range between 25 and I'd say about 31 degrees usually yields the largest snowflakes that you normally would see. As you get colder and colder in the temperatures, the flakes get smaller and smaller. So we could see some pretty large flakes tomorrow. It's not going to be just a few flurries. We're talking a couple to 3 inches and maybe even more than that. So that's kind of the gist of it. Arthur Doopy, thanks, Shea. You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to it as well. I know a lot of people here are looking forward to this storm tomorrow to see what it does. Be prepared for the power to go out. That's all I can say is that wait on power lines, tree limbs coming down. You may go out of power, so make sure that you have some sort of warming mechanism available to keep yourself warm. And with that, I'm going to sign off for tonight. Be safe, everybody. If you don't have to go anywhere tomorrow, don't do it. If you have to do any shopping, do it tonight. Don't wait till tomorrow to go out on the roads and drive around and go shopping, because stores will probably be closed. In fact, schools, county offices, government offices, city and county government offices are all closed. Schools are closed. Colleges, you name it. There's lots of things are closed tomorrow, so don't count on anything being open. You may find a rogue gas station that someone lives nearby that can come over and open it, but there may be a few things open because they know emergency management folks will be out and about, but don't count on it. Stay home, stay safe, stay warm, and I will hop on tomorrow morning and update everybody. I'll be updating tonight as well on Facebook page and my profile page as well. So until next time, everyone, have a good night and enjoy the storm for what it's worth. Hopefully we don't all lose power and everyone gets through just fine.